Some images can include instructions that are only to be run by Docker files that use the image as a base image. We can specify instructions in a Docker file that only execute for downstream builds using the onBuild instruction. Many official images provide onBuild instructions that will automatically add your code to the image. For example, the official Node.js image has a version tagged onBuild, which will automatically add your JavaScript files and run the build. This makes building a Docker image for users of a base image much simpler. For this lesson, we have a Docker file that produces an image that contains Ruby and will automatically set up and run a rack-based web application. In this Docker file, we're going to start with the official Ruby image as our base image. Here, we expose port 4567 so that we can map it to the Docker host. Our entry point assumes that you have a rack application. This is a common way to run a Ruby web application, and so running this image will run rackup against your config.ru file. We're specifying port 4567 and binding to 0000. Here's the first onBuild instruction. OnBuild instructions will not be executed when we build our image. Instead, they will be executed by any Docker files that use this image as a base. OnBuild takes another instruction as an argument. In this case, we're adding all of the files in the Docker context to the root directory in the image. Our next onBuild instruction executes the command bundle install, which will install our Ruby dependencies defined in our application's gem file. This assumes that you have a gem file at the root of your project. Let's build our Ruby rack image now. We now have a Docker image that can be used to run rack-based Ruby web applications. Let's consume this image with a simple Ruby application image. Here's our simple Sinatra application. The root path of this web application will simply output the text "Hello O'Reilly" to the response as plain text. Here's our gem file. This file is expected by the rack image and specifies the Ruby dependencies our application requires. The bundle install step in our rack image will install our dependencies automatically for us using this file. This is our config.ru file, which, if you can remember, is required to start up our rack application. Finally, here's our Docker file. You can see that we're using the rack image that we just created as the base image, and nothing else. That's because the onBuild instructions in the rack image do everything for us. If we execute Docker build on this image, we'll see an extra few steps in the output. In red, we see that our build is executing the build trigger from the base image. And below, we see that copying our application files to the image is included in step 1. Also included is running bundle install, which installs the Sinatra and rack gems from our gem file. Now we can run our Hello O'Reilly application to test it out. And there we have it. Build triggers can be very useful for cases like this, where the Docker image is geared towards a specific framework or platform. Build triggers make these base images much simpler to use for developers wishing to Dockerize their applications.